Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast in my room. It is me, Jess, and we are back for another episode, which I'm super excited about. I've been wanting to talk about this on my podcast for a long time already. I just needed it to be perfect in my eyes. So I really wanted to take my time in planning this episode, and I hope that you guys take this episode how you want it, but feel inspired from it, whatever you take from it. And today's episode is going to be about doing you truly. And what I mean by that, I mean doing what's going to make you happy. So I'll start with a question, and that is, are any of us truly doing ourselves? And if that question doesn't make sense, in other words, I'm asking, are you doing what makes you happy? Are you doing what you want in your life? And about a year and a half ago, I would answer this question probably answering no, that I was not doing what I wanted. I was not doing what was making me happy. I wasn't truly doing me. And at that time in my life, I learned a lot about myself and figured out that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I just in general learned a lot about myself then. And this whole topic came up when I had an assignment for my communications class last semester. We had to write an oratory speech. And so, little fact, if you don't know what an oratory speech is, it's the act of public speaking in a formal manner. So usually oratory topics are related to current problems in the world and are delivered in a persuasive way. Not in a oh my gosh, I can't talk. Not in a persuasive way where they're trying to persuade you to do something that they want. They're just trying to persuade you in motivating you to make a choice. But they also alert the audience of threats or to inspire them to act how to initiate change. So that is what an oratory speech is. Another example, like an actual example of an oratory speech, would be like Barack Obama's speech when he was elected into the presidential office. That's an oratory speech. So anything that I guess you could call like a motivating speech, that's the closest thing you could relate it to. But besides that, in the communications class that I was in, we had to write an oratory speech at the end of the semester, and I knew instantly what I wanted to write about, and of course, obviously, it was this. And I was really happy with my speech, which I'm going to read to you guys in a second. But while I was writing the speech, I realized how much I really did learn about myself at the time that I was going through this. And at the time where I was deciding and asking myself what was going to make me happy and if I was doing things that were making me happy. So I'll go ahead and start to read my speech. Throughout life, it is good to know what you want to do. It is good to know what you want to do is guaranteed of being financially stable. And it is even better when what you want to do makes others happy as well. But in all reality, you can never have all of those things. What happens when you thought you knew what you wanted to do and realized it really wasn't what you wanted to do? It wasn't going to make you happy, but what you wanted to do wouldn't make others happy. I thought I wanted to become a registered nurse. I was so focused on achieving that goal to make others happy that I never focused on myself and what I wanted for myself. But it wasn't long before I realized that was not what I wanted at all. It was always there. I always knew it wasn't what I wanted, but I ignored it and tried to just push it away. But I realized I was not doing what would make me happy. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do would not make others happy. Because nursing meant financial stability. Nursing meant guaranteed employment. Nursing meant achieving a realistic goal. Oftentimes, we do what will make others happy rather than what will make us happy. And when we do what will make others happy, it ends up affecting us negatively in many ways, which is why it is important to do what you want, to do what will make you happy. So why don't we do what makes us happy? Because oftentimes, and most times, we do what makes others happy, like our parents, family, or anyone we know who cares about us. I believe we tend to do this because we were brought up to think about others before ourselves. We were brought up to accomplish what we were expected of. We were never taught to do what we wanted and what would make us happy first. Instead, we were taught to do what we had to do, and we were taught to do what we had to do to make others happy first. With this being said, when we do what will make others happy, rather than what will make us happy, we are affected negatively in ways that try to tell us we are not happy. Whether we ignore them or don't know how to read and realize these signs, they are there, and deep down, we are aware of it. Because we know when we are not happy, because we are aware of how we feel about anything and everything in our life. Because not doing what makes you happy results in not giving your all into something because you are not passionate about it. Not doing what makes you happy results in feeling negative emotions, which then affect your everyday life. And with negativity and unhappiness in your everyday life, you are failing in reaching your own pursuit of happiness. With regards to this, pay attention to what you want and what will make you happy. I still have not figured everything out in my life, and I never will. But listening to myself and choosing to do what I knew would make me happy, despite disappointing others, has taught me a lot. It has taught me that life is too short to think about others before yourself when it comes to happiness. It has taught me that your happiness is the most important thing. It has taught me that you should live your life the way you want because it is your life. And it has taught me that in order to achieve your pursuit of happiness, you must listen and learn about yourself. I learned the goal of going to nursing school was not me. And I learned how much I could create and be truly myself when I was doing the things that made me happy. So I leave you with this. Despite how hard it is to go in the opposite direction of what makes others happy, doing what you want and what will make you happy will always matter more in life. I learned about myself by listening to myself. Listening to myself is how I figured out what made me happy. Because I am doing what makes me happy, and because I am now choosing to do what makes me happy, I am truly doing me, and I am much more happier living that way. It is your life, and achieving your own pursuit of happiness means more than achieving another person's happiness. You can never have all those things, but what you can have is your happiness. So yeah, that was my speech. I hope you enjoyed it. It definitely was intimidating to create this speech and perfect it and then have to present it in front of others. But I think it's an important message, and whether you take it from me or from somebody else or read it somewhere or watch a movie or just wherever you get it from, I think it's a very important mindset to have when you're growing up. And so I want to kind of pick apart my speech and talk about the mindset that I had and what my thoughts were while I was writing it down, this whole speech. So the first part, it's not the first part, but it's in the beginning of the speech when I said, I thought I wanted to become a registered nurse. I was so focused on achieving that goal to make others happy that I never focused on myself and what I wanted for myself. Because nursing meant achieving financial stability. Nursing meant guaranteed employment. Nursing meant achieving a realistic goal. So I always chose what I wanted to do based on what my parents thought, and not that that means that I needed their approval or their permission to do things, but their opinion mattered to me, and so their opinions and comments I took to heart because I valued what they had to say about the things that I wanted to do. And not that that's a bad thing, but I think it definitely gets in the way of realizing what you want to do and what your parents want you to do. A lot of the times, they told me you have to think realistically. And I don't want to come off the wrong way. I don't want to say that my parents didn't believe in me and didn't believe that I could achieve something else, but they know how hard it is in life, and I have yet to experience that because I'm not on my own yet. So for them, it was they wanted me to be able to have something going for me in a realistic way, which I get, but it was a little I can't think of the word that I want to use, but it was a little degrading for me because I felt at that point when they would tell me, you need to think realistically. You need to think realistically. You need to set your goals realistically. When they would tell me that, it was like, well, okay, I can't do that. And I have always been the type of person that daydreams, thinks a little, dreamlike. I'm not a very logical thinker. I'm more of a fantasizer, And in a lot of ways, I'm glad I am like that because it's made me able to think creatively. But it definitely can sound unrealistic. Like my ideas can come off unrealistic to others who think logically. And so both my parents are very logical thinkers. And so when I was writing this in my speech, that's what I was referring to, is that everybody would tell me, most of my parents, but my family and those who knew me would always say, well, nursing is such an amazing program, the field, whatever, anything in the medical field is great. I always heard that. And then especially from my parents, like I just said right now, you have to set realistic goals. You have to think realistically. And so that is why I kind of pushed my thoughts away and forced myself into thinking that I wanted to go into the medical field, that I wanted to become a nurse. And so moving on, when I said we were brought up to accomplish what we were expected of, we were never taught to do what we wanted and what would make us happy first. Instead, we were taught to do what we had to do, and we were taught to do what we had to do to make others happy first. And so when I say this, I'm referring to what we learned growing up, because as we grew up, we learned by being taught, which, we were taught by our parents first, but also we were taught by our teachers, our friends even, and by anyone we wanted to listen to. And I'm sure all of us can relate to being taught how to do things a specific way in school, from kindergarten to senior year of high school. We were always taught to do things in a very specific way. And if we didn't do things in the specific way that we were taught, we weren't doing it the right way. Even if the outcome was the exact same thing, we were never given the freedom of thinking creatively or thinking outside the box or thinking another way. And even when instructors, I'm so used to saying instructors now, even when teachers would tell us you need to think outside the box, even when they would motivate us to think differently, if we didn't think the way that they wanted us to think, we weren't thinking correctly. And as we went from kindergarten to senior year, throughout all those years transitioning to each year, it was good to do good. We were taught that making others happy was good, and by others happy I mean our parents, our teachers, our friends. And in order to make those people happy, we had to do it a certain way, good grades, doing your homework, respecting the rules, not being disrespectful, making the right friends, being nice. And all of these things that we learned all relate to each other in the way that when we did grow up, when we got to the point of being able to make decisions on our own, we based our decisions on what would make others happy as well. And I'm not saying that everyone thinks that way, because some people, they don't consider others, they don't think about others, and they've always thought about themselves. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it could definitely be toxic, it can be a bad thing too, because if you think about yourself too much, you're selfish. But I mean, there are some people who were able to learn it quicker than others and do what they want to do. But I think a lot of us can relate to the fact of growing up and learning from others that you had to do things a certain way to make others happy, and that's like a boss or a teacher or your parent, like I said. So when we got to that point of being able to make our own decisions, for some of us, it was difficult to know what we wanted to do. Because although we might think that we wanted to do, we always wanted it validated from somebody who was teaching us, And when somebody validated what we wanted to do, it felt even better. Like it didn't, you knew that, okay, I definitely want to do this when somebody else validated it, if that makes sense. Like for those who wanted to be in the medical field, like, oh, I want to be a dentist. Like, oh, wow, being a dentist makes so much money. It's such a good job. And that validated it for yourself because it was coming from somebody who has taught you. But you don't hear things like, oh, my major is history, or like my major is art, or my major is English, or you don't hear things that don't have 100% guaranteed of successful jobs being validated. Like there's always that job, and I can't think of one specifically, but there's always that job that you hear and then they're like, oh, that that's hard to get into. Like there's not that many, where it's not as validating as a doctor or as an engineer, or it's not as validating as those jobs that are in demand and make money guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? So that's where I was going into when I said all this, because it can be hard differentiating between what you want because you want to do it and what you think you want because everyone around you supports it and validates it for you. And so next, when I say whether we ignore them or don't know how to read and realize these signs, they are there and we know deep down we are aware of it. So this is kind of obvious. I mean, we know when we are not happy. It's kind of hard to ignore it because you feel it. You feel when you are unhappy with something, and that's with anything in your life. We can only force ourselves to do something for so long before we just snap and end up exploding. So we know ourselves so well. I mean, we spend all of our time with ourselves. So we know when we're feeling a certain type of way towards something. So we can try to push out the thoughts. We can try to ignore them and persuade ourselves into thinking that we do want to do something, or that we do like what we're doing. But in all reality, we can really only force ourselves so much before we're like, I know that I'm not happy with this. And so then when I say, with negativity and unhappiness in your life, you are failing in reaching your own pursuit of happiness. So I don't know about you, but reaching your own pursuit of happiness should be a goal for you in life. It's a goal for myself, and I think it really should be a goal for everybody. You should want to be as happy as you can feel in your life. I think you'd be lying if you said that you were okay with doing things that weren't making you happy. I know you might say, but I want to do what makes my mom happy first, or I want to do what's going to make my kid happy first, and I completely get that. But you are lying to yourself if you're going to say that you don't want to do what makes you happy at all, okay? Finding your pursuit of happiness and achieving your pursuit of happiness is a very important aspect in life that you should have. And it relates to everything that you do in life, because if you have not achieved your pursuit of happiness, by the time that you've done so many things that you know are not making you happy, then you know that that's why. Now, achieving your own pursuit of happiness is achieving it in any way that you think is achieving it. You know, I can't be the one to say how you achieve your pursuit of happiness, because it's your own pursuit of happiness. It's your pursuit of happiness. So it's up to you how you achieve that. For me, the way that I achieve it is doing what will make me happy and doing what I want to do. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in their pursuit of happiness, because it's such a common thing that makes someone unhappy by doing something they don't want to do. But everything else in between, besides this, doing what makes you happy, is up to you how to pursue your pursuit of happiness. So I think that's a very important part to this speech, and it was very important for me to include that, which is why I did. And so then I say, pay attention to what you want and what will make you happy. It has taught me that life is too short to think about others before yourself when it comes to your happiness. It has taught me that your happiness is the most important. It has taught me that you should live your life the way you want, because it is your life. And I wanted to include this because earlier in the speech, I talked about how we were taught by others how to do things and how to do things to make others happy. So all these years, other people have taught us, and we've learned from other people. But now, I think you need to teach yourself something. You need to learn something from yourself. So listen to yourself and learn something from yourself, because the only way that you're going to do that is if you're listening to yourself. And I think that's so important to teach yourself, because is the only way that you're going to figure out what you want to do, what's going to make you do truly you. And it's hard to figure it out. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say you're going to think about it and then 5 minutes later know exactly what you want. Like I said in the speech, I still have not figured out everything in my life. I still have not figured out exactly what I want to do in life. And I don't think you ever will know 100% what you're going to do, what you want to do, how you're going to do it. You know, that's up to the universe. That is not up to you. But you can make the decisions in what you want to do that you can make the decisions on. You know, like, obviously, it's not up to you, like, how long you're going to stay on this earth. I mean, unless, unfortunately, you take yourself out in the least offensive way, you know, unless you kill yourself. But besides that, of course, there are things that we can't choose. But we can definitely choose the things that make us happy. It's just like when we cut off toxic people. A lot of the time, people hold on to toxic people. And that's a whole different topic. But if you have this goal of finding your pursuit of happiness, but you can't let go of the toxic people in your life, you need to learn about yourself. You need to listen to yourself on why can't you let go, if that makes sense. So I don't want to get off topic, but I think that it's important to realize this. It's important to talk about it with yourself, or if you want to talk about it with other people. But it's important to just realize it in general and think about it. You know, like I said, it's not going to take like 5 minutes. It's not going to take just thinking about it for a little bit to realize it. It's going to take a lot of time listening and learning and teaching yourself about yourself, which can be difficult because then it brings in like self-identity. Like, a lot of people have identity issues. A lot of people don't know how to listen to themselves because they don't feel worthy enough. And there's so many different aspects that get in the way, but it can be done, is what I'm trying to say. It can definitely be done. And, you know, if there's one person that you should have the most patience for, is yourself. Because if you don't have patience for yourself, you're never going to grow. You're never going to give yourself that chance of moving forward, of achieving things that you want to achieve. You know, you need to believe in yourself. And this might sound so cliche. This whole episode might sound really cliche and sappy and, you know, just very basic. But it's important, and I can't stress that enough. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, it refers to the last episode that I posted. You know, in the last episode I posted, if you didn't listen to it, and even if you did, you know, recap, I talked about how I am doing things with intention this whole decade, not just this new year, but this whole decade, because this decade will be the decade of history in the making for myself. And it can definitely be that for you too. But if you want it to be the decade of history in the making, then you need to have intentions. You need to realize what you know is what you want to do or what you don't want to do. And it's not that hard to realize it. I think the hardest part is just listening to yourself and trusting yourself, because I think a lot of us do have trust issues, but I think the one person we have the biggest trust issues with is ourselves, because we don't think that we're right. We don't trust ourselves in general, because whenever we do trust ourselves, something ends up happening. But that could be with anybody. And I think the person we should trust the most is ourselves, because we are the ones who make our own decisions. We're the ones who guide us and lead us to a certain part in our life, whether it's getting our job, going to school, and all these things. So that is what I mean by pursuing your own happiness. The pursuit of happiness. It's something that can change your life. And I have not reached my pursuit of happiness yet. I mean, I'm only 19 years old. There's no way. And it's not going to happen anytime soon. It's not going to happen in a month. It's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen quick. Nothing happens quickly. Everything takes time. But I want you guys to realize it. You know what I mean? Like, I want you guys to think, oh shoot, like, my pursuit of happiness, my happiness does matter, which a lot of people don't think about it like that, They think about others before themselves, and that's really, really good. It's amazing to be so selfless. I always think too quickly before my words come out, so I always end up just saying things without knowing if it's making sense, and it probably doesn't make sense. I mean, I hope I make sense, but it probably doesn't make sense. And so then more than halfway into the podcast episode, I'm thinking, like, I don't make any sense at all. Like, I'm listening to myself and I'm thinking, I do not make any sense. And then I just kind of zone out and try to recollect my thoughts. But then at that point, I'm like, what was I even trying to say? So if that ever happens, know that that's what's going on. I'm currently watching Can't Buy Me Love with the sound off. Fun fact, when I record podcast episodes, I watch a movie with the sound off, obviously, because I'm recording. And if you have not watched Can't Buy Me Love, you need to watch it. It's a 80s movie. It was released in 1987. Steve Rash was the director, and it's an amazing movie. Basically, it's just about, it's such a cliche plot. But you have to understand, it's an 80s movie. If this movie was made now, it'd be horrible, I'm more than sure. But there's just something about 80s movies that are so, I don't know. I love 80s movies. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, I can't think of the word, but there's just something about them. So, going back to what I was saying, it's about this girl who falls in love with the nerd. She's the popular cheerleader. She falls in love with the nerd because she's forced to date him fake. She's faking, they're faking their, their relationship because she stained her mom's suede outfit with wine. And so he paid her, he paid for the dress, like for a new dress. And so because he paid for it, she has to give back by like pretending to be his girlfriend to give him popularity and to get him to be likable, because he was the nerd that was always bullied and everything. And so then she ends up falling in love with him, and it's a good movie. I know the plot might sound very cliche and like, oh, I already know what's gonna happen, but no. You need to watch it. It's such a good movie. 80s movies there's so many 80s movies that are in my list of favorite movies. But my mom and dad grew up in the 80s. They were teenagers in the 80s. So when I was younger growing up, my mom always showed me 80s movies. And so I grew up with 80s movies because that's what my mom would show me. And I've always been in love with them. So that's my little recommendation to you and my little off-topic conversation in this podcast. I feel like there always has to be an off-topic conversation in a podcast episode. I mean, how do I not get off-topic? But anyways, going back to what I was talking about in this episode, are you doing you truly then? Are you doing what makes you happy? Are you doing what you want to do? You don't have to answer yourself now if you don't know. If you do know, you don't have to figure it out this instant. You don't have to be so quick to figure things out. But I think you do need to think about it. It's important to think about yourself in general, is what I'm trying to say. That's the whole thing. The whole main idea of this episode is that most of the time, if we haven't realized it, we are content with doing the things that makes others happy, knowing that we are not happy ourselves. But we ignore those signs and everything. So we persuade ourselves, we trick ourselves, we manipulate ourselves into thinking that we are content in life, we're happy. But we all know that we are not happy. And so in order to reach your pursuit of happiness, your own pursuit of happiness, you must do what truly makes you happy. And as I said in the beginning of the episode, take what you want from this episode. Take what I'm telling you how you want. Take it lightly, take it heavily. Take whatever you want, whether it's just a little bit of information, whether it's just the movie Can't Buy Me Love that you now want to watch and nothing else. No matter what you take from this episode, I hope that you do take what you want to do, because that's all that matters. That is all that matters. And I don't mean that in a broad way, and that's all that matters. But in all the things that do matter, they all go back to this. So I'm going to end this episode, and I hope that you guys are inspired. I hope that you guys are motivated. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.